to open the meeting and officially welcome everyone to the meeting for today. We're going to get on to a couple of things that are really important for the design of the pool and the layout of the pool deck. And we need to first start by approving the minutes from our meeting on July 6th. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Donna. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Steve. And we're gonna vote. So I believe I'll just do, I'll just recognize you and you just say yes or no. So I'll start with Gordon.
I have to abstain because I was not at the meeting.
Okay. Charles.
Sorry, Cora. Hey, can you go to me last? I'm reading it right now.
Okay, sure. Donna.
Yes.
Steve. Steve, are you there?
Yes. Sorry,
Okay.
couldn't hear you.
Kevin.
Yes, I just finished reading them, and just a heads up, I'm gonna be driving my daughter to practice, so I'll stay on the call, but there'll be about 5 minutes I might not be able to answer.
Okay. And Charles, are you good?
Coming back to me, I'm good. Yeah.
Okay. And I would vote yes, so the minutes would pass. Perfect. Thank you, everybody. All right, and then we're gonna move on to the pool depth, which I don't know who is gonna take that over. Is that Dory or I'm not sure who's taking over.
Aviva, did you want to run this or do you want me to just facilitate the conversation at all?
I wasn't on the last call, so if you are up to facilitating, Dory, that'd be great.
That's fine. I'm just going to share screen again just to remind everyone of the layout. The things we're interested in confirming today are the dimensions of the pool deck area and the depth of the pool. That we haven't discussed the depth at any great depth. And that's where I know that you all have been thinking about your comments. And again, reminder that the depth issue is critical to the design of this juncture because according to code, it determines the number of fixtures in the pool area for the toilet rooms. So right now we have a pretty good assumption, but we need to confirm it.
Dory, can you repeat that about the link between the two?
The code for the building code for swimming pools ties the number of toilet fixtures in the restrooms to the depth or volume of pool water in the pool. Strangely, so we actually just want to confirm the volume of the pool as a whole by figuring out the depth of both the shallow and the deep areas of the pool and where that line divides. So that'll just help us confirm that critical cost of the project.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Steve, what that has to do with this bathing load, depending on how much volume of pool is, will determine how many people can be in the pool, which then determines how many toilets you have to have available.
Understood.
Got it.
And just a quick clarification, because there are toilets in two spaces. The toilet rooms that are off of the athletics lobby, we are currently basing on the size of the seating area in the grandstand. And the thing that the bathing load will impact is the number of fixtures in the locker rooms. So basically, the number of fixtures for the people who are swimming has to be based on the number of people who can be in the pool.
With the vestibule connected, do you get credit for anything that's in the school?
Yes, in the school.
Yes. So if I don't know, I can't see what's at that end of the school, but let's say on the other side of the vestibule, there's shower facilities, locker facilities. Can you get credit for that if it's connected?
Not if you are not allowing access to it. So there are times where we anticipate the school would not be open necessarily, or the pool would not be open. We are using it the other way around, where we feel are using these toilets to support the highest load of the gymnasium's activity. We also have it accounted for on the other side. So we're kind of, that's one really helpful overlap of the two spaces. But we don't anticipate that you would ever by code be allowed to send people from the pool to the locker rooms. That's pretty clear from the code.
Right. I think it's also important, Charles, to note that we have to permit the pool project and the school project separately. Otherwise, we will run afoul of the MSBA. So we do really need to consider them from a code standpoint as two separate projects.
And for all we know, they happen at different moments or they don't get passed by the voters. So maybe the pool is not something the voters vote for. So we have to be sure that the two are by code independent as well. Okay, so yes, Cora, do you want to share some of you want to kick us off on the depth question and share your thinking on this?
Sure. So I think with the depth, I know it has to be at least 12 feet if we're going to be having a diving well. If you can correct me if that's wrong. I don't remember how deep West Springfield's pool was, but we went to Minnechaug and theirs is 12.4. So I don't know if they just put a little extra over 12 just to make sure. So that's where the depth is from the deep end. And then from the shallow end, again, we went to Minnechaug and their shallow end is 3.5 feet. And then it slopes gently to 5.5 feet. And then from 5.5 feet is where the line goes across the pool that you have to mark visually to show that there's a deeper slope or a steeper slope going down to the deep end. So theirs goes from 3.5 to 5.5 down to just over 12. So 12 feet, 4 inches.
And then where does that demarcation between 5.5 and the drop to 12?
So across their pool, there's a line on most pools nowadays. You have to have a line that goes across the pool when you're changing the slope. And let's see, I have pictures of their pool, but I don't know if you. Okay, so can I share my screen? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
So if you look at their pool, this is looking from the bleacher side of where all the stands are, looking across the pool to where over here would be where their host team would be for high school meets, or when we have recreation meets, that's where the bullpen is. And if you see this line going across the pool, that's where it changes. And you can see the slope is changing from a gradual slope to a much more steep slope. So that's where that line goes across the pool. It's not quite halfway. I believe this pole right here that you see is actually halfway across the pool. So it's actually a little bit closer to the shallow end. And then we have this line at Pine Knoll too, as Donna could tell you. We have where the steep slope changes, you can see a visual line going across the pool.
Have we asked our consultant?
We will, and he has answers to support this, but I wanted to find out if there were any particular strong feelings about this, because yes, some of this is going to be somewhat automatic, but we'd heard that there were some particular questions and concerns, so we want to hear from you all, particularly Cora first.
So, I mean, theirs is a really nice pool. I don't remember what the dimensions are, if we were told the exact dimensions or depths of the West Springfield pool, if they're the same as this or if they're a little bit different, but they're 3.5 feet in the shallow end, which some people might say is shallow. You can't dive until it's 5 feet deep anyway, which most shallow ones do not have. The 3.5 feet makes it more user-friendly for people who are doing swimming lessons. So if you're gonna have any type of learn to swim programs, having it shallower for younger swimmers makes it a lot nicer. Again, I know Donna can speak to that if we needed to, because right now when we do swimming lessons in the high school pool, we have to put platforms in the pool that raise the depth about a foot or so for little kids to get in, because they can't stand in the shallow end. It's too deep.
The shallow end used to be the diving and starting block end.
So yeah, I think it's about right. 4. I think it's about 4 feet in the high school pool, although I can't remember because we haven't been inside in a while. But I know outside at Pine Knoll it's 4 feet, and I I was in actually teaching our mini Marlins last night, and there are some kids who still struggle to keep their face above the water at 4 feet because some of them are really small. So it also helps if you were to do any type of like water aerobics or any other type of classes in the shallow end, you would want something that's deep enough to support the height and weight of people who, you know, if they're seniors coming in or anyone who's coming in that's trying to do any type of water aerobics that need to stand and be able to be supported in the shallow end. Whereas if you go deeper, the deeper it gets, actually the less unsteady it is for some people. So 3.5 feet seems to be kind of a sweet spot. And that's what they have at Minnechaug, which doesn't seem too shallow for teaching turns and stuff like that. So
Do you, I know that you mark off the lanes for races. Do you ever mark across? It looks like the Minnechaug has a stanchion system here.
So I would imagine that they don't really use theirs for the community at all. So you can get like a line buoy that would go across. I would say you would want to put it right above. You would just put little hooks that go above where this line is, where it's changing, so that people can not only see on the bottom that there would be a buoy across the whole lap of the pool. And you would want to do that when there's swimming lessons or when you were doing any type of program that would just be in the shallow end, so that people can not only see at their feet, but they would be aware of it on the surface of the water as well.
And we spoke about where the diving board's occurring, but in general, you know, depth is all the way across. And is there a, you know, I believe there's an inevitable, obvious extent of the 12 feet 4 inches there that relates to the potential for your divers. Is that a strict number that you have, or, I mean, Michael will know.
I'm not sure what, so I mean, if you put it in the middle of the pool, then you're going to want the whole pool to be, you know, 12 feet or 12 feet 4 inches, whatever you go with. But if you moved it more to one side, as opposed to right in the middle, you could actually make the last 2 lanes go up a little higher. You wouldn't have to have them be quite so deep.
And is that advantageous to you, or does that change in any way the physics of a race?
So the best type of pools, if you look at like Olympic stadiums when they build pools for Olympics, which they'll be building soon, right? Usually they have Olympic trials down in is it in Omaha, I think. So they build pools that are all the same depth because it sucks up some of your wake, but we're not training swimmers right now. I think we would be okay if you did like lanes 1 through 4 at 12.4, and then you went up a little bit in lanes like 5 and 6, and you went up to like 8 feet. 8 feet's still a pretty good depth. So you could technically make those last 2 lanes shallower. I don't foresee there ever being a 3-meter diver put in.
Well, that's I think it's definitely something that you'd want to consider, right? I think it's probably in day one. I agree. I don't think it's in the future, but I don't know what the future holds. So I think we probably want to consider either adding a 3-meter, 5, 10, 20 years down the road, and having the space and facility to do that and not be constrained if whoever's in our seats in a decade want to do that. Or the other option would be to add another 1 meter. I think having a uniform depth makes sense. I just think the question, like, is a 3-meter depth the same requirement as a 1 meter depth? So is a 3-meter, you need 14 feet? I just don't know the answer to it. But the thing that Mike will be really able to help us with is what the slope from deep to shallow needs to be and where that slope starts. I don't know what the answer is, but I know that is a huge concern based upon people taking a very long dive off of the diving board, and if the slope is too great or too close to the diving board, breaking your neck.
Right, exactly. That's why. Yeah, Mike will know, but those were precisely the questions I had as well. My daughter was a diver. And yeah, I have that concern as well, but also was curious about whether or not changing that height along the deep area doesn't create more challenges for that. So do others agree that a uniform depth across is a smarter long-term move, so it gives you the flexibility of a second board eventually? Let's say a second 1 meter.
I'd like to know the answer.
Dory, is there any reason you wouldn't do it?
uniform depth across? Not that I can think of. I mean, you might say, oh well, it's less volume if we make it shallow, but it seems like it creates a more challenged construction, and I agree that it's less.
Exactly.
So, and I don't think that we're worried about that being a problem for the number of fixtures. So I would recommend the uniform depth across. I like Charles had the same question. If a 3 meter is a possibility, we would want to find out for sure from our consultant what depth you need on a 3 meter board dive area.
I'd like to know the answer, because if it's the same depth, then who cares? It doesn't matter. If you need another 6 inches or if you need another 8 feet, that's a relevant factor to me.
Okay, so we want to design around the 1 meter depth, but it would be good to confirm for you all for the future the possibility of a 3 meter at that depth. If it's a 1 foot difference, it'd be interesting to know, because then perhaps it's worth the added investment.
It appears to be 12.6 for a 3 meter board.
So there you have that.
So if West Springfield did 12.4, I would say go another 2 inches to have that flexibility.
Go to 12.6 and have that.
And yeah, and the other thing that I have no idea is what the height is.
Exactly. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because most of the 3 meter pools I've visited, locally do have a higher roof, setup.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that would be a much bigger cost impact, I think, than a 2 inches more of depth.
And every design that I'm thinking of in my head has stands above that have 3 meter boards. I don't know if I'm trying to remember an indoor 3 meter that stands on the side.
Yeah. Right, and that's probably partly because they have more volume space in general, so they're designing to that approach. So if I will check on the height issue, because I would imagine that that's going to be a concern here, that we're not really going to want to build to that height just for the possibility of a 3 meter board. But correct me if I'm wrong, if that's a priority here.
I think I'd have the same comments on the depth as I would on the height. If it's another 6 inches or another 2 inches, then do it.
Okay. All right. And were there other, Corey, your current position, correct, I have it in my notes in the past, but ideally you're putting the 1 meter board at the third lane or the second lane?
In between lanes 2 and 3.
Great. Okay, and yes, we've already positioned the lifeguard at the side, very similar to this layout. Put the lifeguard across, so they're watching towards the bleachers and watching the side of the diving. Okay, great. Maybe we should go back to the.
Yeah, I can stop sharing.
Just go back to confirming the apron area.
Yep.
So we, in our last meeting, ended up agreeing to not the spillover, but instead the drop. I can't remember the word.
A recessed gutter.
Recessed gutter. Thank you. Does that in any way change any of our spacing here? This is 10 feet from the edge of the bleachers. Currently we have 1310 at the end where the diving board is. And that's more generous than West Springfield. And then we have, essentially 10 from the team side, and the team side is two seats, 2 rows of seats, and 10 off the end.
So it's 10, and then the shallow end 10. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's 10 feet till you get to the seats.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So obviously there would be, 8 feet clear, you'd imagine, of human feet. Yeah. And I know this again is kind of more generous to allow significant space behind. And we have the dimensions of a diving board handy on the other side, but I'm not worried about this side now. And I like the way this is working with our egress and plumbing door here. But it's just being sure that we have this as needed, or if this is more generous, it certainly could make a difference cost-wise to trim down.
So it's 10, it's essentially, wait, this is 10 feet until the two-sided bleachers and 10 feet to this, to the, is it 4 on the other side?
It's
Yes, it's 4 on the other side, and this
Yeah.
is sort of the 2 rows of seating that would be for teams.
And then how much space do the bleachers on each side take up? Do we know?
Yeah. And 2.
And the other side is more like 3-4.
Oh, sorry, you're waiting for that too. Yeah, 3-4.
The 3-4 is 2 rows of bleachers, and is that right?
Yeah, and 10-2 is a 4.
That's correct.
Okay.
And what's the in this design? What's the width of the pool? Not including the L.
48 feet. 75 length.
75. So the
Oh.
48 is going to have to be wider, because if you have 48 feet and you have 6 lanes, that's 8 foot a lane, but you're going to need at least a foot on each side for lane lines to go in. Excuse me. And that's especially, you're going to need it on the side that has the L. But if you're going to have any teams come in and rent this pool, the lanes need to be of uniform size. So you can't have the inside lanes be 8 feet, and then if you put 1 foot on the, if you put 1 foot, like the lane lines in 1 foot on each end, then those outside lanes are going to be 7 feet, so they're not going to be the same width. So they need to make sure that the lane size will be uniform with extra space on the outside, at least 1 foot to 1.5 feet on the outside.
Just so I'm understanding that, they need to be uniform. But then they're not uniform on the outside lanes, right?
Yes, because on those outside lanes, when you put lane lines in, those are usually 6 inches to 1 foot, depending on hand railings or whatever else is going on, like depending on if you have the ADA accessible seat that's going in, if that's in the way, or if there's a pole sticking into the pool. It depends on which system you use. So that's one thing. But also if you have handrails that go over the edge, if the ladders are either built into the wall or if they're not built into the wall, usually the handrails stick out over the edge of the pool, and you need to have lane lines that are inside of that, so that as swimmers are going, they don't whack themselves, you know, on the handrails or anything else that's on the sides of the walls. And especially if you have stairs, as these ones do, that has to have a lane line in for any type of racing, so that people don't go and push off and then go sideways into that wall, and the lane line should help prevent that.
Right.
So can we alleviate some of that by doing the integral stairs?
Right. You're talking about this area here or even farther? So Corey, right now we're anticipating that walk-in here, correct? Is that
Just-
but we would still want, you're still saying we should make this a 50 across.
Yes.
Is
So
it
in
always-
Minnechaug, they have 7 foot lanes, and they have 1.5 feet on each side, because they have their ADA lift is on the up, it would be almost on the side across from the stairs. And they also have handrails that go over the edge of the pool. So because those go over the edge of the pool, you need to make sure that kids can clear those when they're swimming, and the lane lines are 1.5 feet from each side of the pool.
So if they have 7-foot lanes, then do they have a 42 plus the 3
Mhm.
or
They
45?
have a 40, I think there's just 45. So they
Oh.
have 7-foot lanes with 1.5 feet on each side.
And are you asking for 8-foot lanes or 7-foot lanes?
Well, ideally I would like 8-foot lanes.
Okay.
Is that, Dory, is that going to be like a 15% cost increase relatively because of the size?
I wouldn't say 15%, but it's a cost increase for sure.
Substantial?
Yeah, I mean, here's a question. Well, yeah, I mean, we're already, so let me switch over to the PDF, right? So pool area is already at 14.8. So we would be adding, to that, 150, 300, 300. So it's going to go a little higher. But the preference is for 8-foot lanes plus the extra, so 9 on the ends.
If we go 7-foot lanes, though, could the building be 6 feet shorter or less wide? Would it be?
That's a question. No, I mean, we're either expanding the building or we're reducing the apron.
Yeah, I just think cost being a factor, it's worth considering the 7-foot and the slightly smaller building. Just a thought.
My thought would be to actually go to 58 feet and make it 8 lanes that are 7 feet with 1 on each end.
I agree. I think having an 8-foot lane would 8-lane pool would differentiate ourselves and be very attractive for the community services, in addition to the competitive swim teams.
So 58 feet in length instead.
Width.
I mean,
No, we can't. We're going off track, I think, folks.
yeah,
We just 20% of the cost of this process here. I think 6 lanes is the most that we can afford, unless others think differently.
I think differently.
Kevin, I see your hand is raised.
Do we know what other high schools' lane line widths are? Is it 7 feet or 8 feet?
I think it depends on the school, and all I know is Minichog's right now. I don't know other people's because I never really measured, to be honest.
What's Minichog's?
Theirs is 7.
West Springfield is 7 as well.
Do we know any schools that have 8-foot lane lines?
I mean, the only one I said I knew is Minichog. I'm pretty sure ours. I don't know what ours is at.
Ours is tight.
Pine Knoll, I think, is bigger.
Yeah.
They have a bigger footprint than the lanes that we have at the high school.
And I'm sorry, did you say that Minichog was 7 feet?
They are 7 feet.
Okay. And are you looking for 8 feet?
Yes.
So do we know any schools that have 8-foot lane lines?
I don't know the depth or the width of any pools except for lane lines, except for ours, which is I think under 7 actually at the high school, and 7 at Minichog. I don't know any other ones.
Okay.
What about 8 lane pools in the area? Do we know of any of those?
No, there are none. Which,
No.
if you talk to Mike, who is the pool designer, is going to tell you that more and more people are going to 8 instead of 6.
But nobody's doing it here yet.
Well, there aren't a lot of newer pools built here yet, so.
And Greg, when we built East Long Meadow High School pool, right, 4 lanes was the standard, and it was modeled after, Minichog's then at the time, South Hadley's, Trinity United Methodist Church all had 4-lane pools. That was kind of the standard. The standard from now 25 years ago is 6 lanes. Competitive pools that are being used in the community space are now being built as 8 lanes. So I hate to have this opportunity to, once in a lifetime, not go where the puck is going, right?
Well, but I think we're adding $3 million to an already expensive project. And if every other pool and every other team is at 6, why jeopardize potentially the project for a larger, more grandiose? I would love it also. I just think the cost is already high. And now to add multiple millions to have something that nobody else has doesn't seem like a good strategy for me.
Dory,
Greg, how are you getting to 3 million? Just square footage times.
Out of the air. It's a $15 million project. We're going to add 25% in lane and additional water. I don't know. It's an estimate. I don't really know how much more it's going to cost. It's going to be in the millions to go from 6 to 8. I don't know if anybody wants to dispute that.
on that subject,
Different question for the design team. Are there other implications to increasing the size of the pool other than simply bigger costs more? Like, are we tripping into a different, more water, now more fixtures, right?
Yeah, more water adds more fixtures. More water, I assume, adds more space requirements in the mechanical room as well.
So, Dory, do you have an estimate?
That would be interesting to have Michael confirm.
Yeah, we can certainly reach out and confirm, talk to Michael about that.
Dory, would you say I'd be way off in the $3 million number?
I don't know, and I hate it when you ask those questions because I feel like it will be more expensive for sure, right? So,
Will it be in millions?
Look,
Is
we're
this-
talking,
wait.
just to confirm, we're talking 8-foot lanes plus 2 feet beyond that, right? So we're talking a 66-foot wide pool.
I would go 58. So you would have 8 7-foot lanes with a foot on each side.
And the rationale behind the 7 versus the 8, when you have 8 lanes, is, and Kevin, I think this is where your head was going. You're thinking about competition. You're thinking about high school practices. You're thinking about, having both teams, potentially both the men's and women's team, practice at the same time. If you've got 8 lanes, then you've got a lot more space to get swimmers moving, and potentially you could go from 4 hours of high school practices to 2 hours, and then open up the remaining time for the community to do other things. If you only have 6 lanes, then you kind of need the 8 lanes for just getting swimmers to be able to swim together.
so it sounds like the two sort of potential things that are being explored would be like a 50-foot wide, 6 lane, 8-foot per lane pool.
Or
Yes.
small?
Or you're saying it would
Yeah.
need to be 50 rather than 48 in order to
Yes.
have the lane lines on the outside
Yes.
versus a 58-foot, 8 lane, 7-foot per lane.
Yes.
That's what Cora is proposing are the two
Yes.
possibilities.
So it's essentially adding 8 feet. So 4
Okay.
foot, 4 feet on each side.
Right.
Dory, can I ask the question?
Uh-huh.
Do you think that this decision has enough fall down implications that is it worth talking to Mike about how different these two things would be on some of these other implications about mechanical equipment and
Yeah,
Those are
things,
really
and
good, right?
seeing if we could have it as an alternate in the pricing exercise?
I think
I will, sure. And we need to know all the implications. The thing is, we can't make it an alternate without having more of for instance, the alternate would create a different fixture count for sure. It's right. The building as a whole becomes almost 1,000 square feet larger, right? So to Greg's point, 1,000 feet times $400 a square foot.
4 million.
4 million. So it does become millions.
Out of it. Let's stop this conversation now. Seriously, we are so far above budget already. I think 8 feet, it would be irresponsible of us to put that in front of the voters. I know it would be ideal. I know it would be awesome, but my fear is this thing passing and not passing. So better to have a 6-lane pool, and I would propose 7.5 lanes because I think that from 7.5 will be a substantial difference to 8 feet, and get a decent facility instead of nothing. I would propose that.
Can I just do a quick math check? We just said 1,000 square feet, Dory?
I'm looking at the building as a whole, not just
As a whole? Yes.
right?
And $400 a square foot? Roughly? That's 400,000, not 4 million.
Thank you.
Thank you.
just that's a factor of 10, and that's a big
Yeah.
piece of the discussion. So
I still think we should ask the question of Michael just to understand also what the implications are. But we have, no problem kind of coming back with information on these two options. I mean, it's 8-foot width difference just at the pool. And Cora, just again to the apron question,
Yep.
Curious about that, because if your preference is to get more pool and we're doing the recessed gutter, right? And we've been assuming a little bit more extra because of the overflow gutter. Do you feel like the aprons are now oversized?
So I can let me just find so when we went to Minnetonka, we got the dimensions of the deck of their pool.
Mm-hmm.
And just to give you a reference, and if anyone's been to their pool, they probably have the most deck space of any pool in this area. So we talked at length to Eric Mandel, who is their high school and their rec coach. Their pool is essentially only used for high school swimming, for their rec team, and then when the school has PE classes, every once in a while they have camps. If their athletic department is running camps for basketball, soccer, or other sports, they allow them to come in and use the pool for a short amount of time as part of their camp, like schedule for the day. But that's really all they use it for. They don't have any community programs. The end of the pool, or the deep end to the wall, which is where their diving board is 18.5 feet. So it's probably about, just over or about 4 feet bigger than ours. The side wall, the side of the pool, the left side of the pool that's going to the bleachers for the where the crowd would sit, is 8.5 feet. And then from the bleachers to the wall is another 11 feet. So they have substantially more space on that side for bleacher seating, but they only have 8.5 feet from the edge of the pool to the bleachers. So right now you have 10 feet. So you could, and there's plenty of walkway. Charles, you've been there. Steve, you've been there. We've had plenty of swim meets over there. There's plenty of room to walk in between the side of the pool and getting up into the bleachers. They also have a 6-row bleachers as opposed to a 4-row bleachers. The sidewall going to the 2-seated bleachers, if you will, is also 8.5 feet. And then, and it's another 3 feet of bleachers on that side. So they have 8.5 feet on each side. And then in their shallow end to the wall, we have 10 feet. They have 11 feet. So their footprint for their deck space is a little bit more on the deep end side, but it's a little less on each side of the pool going to each bleacher set, either 6, 4 or 2 or whatever they are.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a place where you could give a little bit.
Give a little, and it does. I mean, the advantage of tightening there is on the large bleacher side, particularly as it brings your fans a little closer to the pool action,
Right.
As long as it feels like a comfortable margin. I think that, the other side, I'm not as interested in removing because we have a lot more stuff happening over there. We have.
Yeah, what it doesn't account for is the stairs at the end.
Yeah.
Where West Springfield does have that, and Minnetonka does not have accessible stairs.
Right.
Which I'm going to tell you, when I talked to a lot of the seniors, so at the 4th of July parade, the Marlins, which is our swim team, had a float, and we built our float in the senior center parking lot, much to our convenience. And we had a lot of seniors come out and ask us what we were doing and why we were doing what we were doing. And we said, we really want people to vote yes for the pool because we want to make it more community-based. We want to have swim lessons. We want to have access for people to use it during the day, not just for high school. Whereas right now we're not allowed to do that. And they were all very excited. And I think the stairs, I don't know what the size of the stairs is, but having them be long, like the one at West Springfield doesn't seem so big to me, but I feel like if you had them substantial enough, it makes a big difference for accessibility where you wouldn't have to use the lift as much. And also for swimming lessons, those stairs are a game changer. So definitely those should for sure stay. And I don't know if we can get the dimensions of those stairs just so we know how long they are and then how deep each step is going to be, because that's the more narrow they can be, the better for accessibility reasons for people.
I'd like to piggyback on that. We did a survey with the rec department just asking about we didn't mention the new pool. We just said, here is, what are your needs, your aquatic needs in town?
Mhm.
The response is, it was overall that we want more aquatic time in town. So I just want to just say that the community portion of this is large.
I agree 100% with Ann. I think that this is going to be an important differentiator. And Greg, as you're looking for votes, this is going to be critical. If you were building a competitive pool, you wouldn't do this. But we're building a competitive pool and a community-based pool. And I think things like water aerobics, getting every level of individual into this pool is going to be important.
But we can do that in 6 lanes, and better to have a 6-lane pool than no pool. And we have to all agree that the pool will most likely get less votes than the high school project. And the high school project, I believe, is going to be close. So to add,
I think at this point, I think what I'd love to know is what the cost is and what it looks like, and what it contributes to the overall project.
But we're at 15 million for a 6-lane pool, and now we're going bigger. 15 million is a high number already.
I mean, we've already eliminated 3.6 million from 5 minutes ago, though. I'm smiling, Greg. I'm smiling with you, I think.
I'm with you, Charles. Believe me, I want it. I want it too, but we can't. We need this vote to pass, and to add another 2 lanes, I feel will only get less votes for this pool because it becomes that much more expensive.
So I think what I would like to suggest, Greg is making a very pertinent point, and that is the basis of design has always been a 6-lane pool. We can certainly, and now that we have information on the depth, Mike Mancini is on vacation this week, so we'll be able to circle back with him next week. I think we have to continue along the path of our 6-lane, but we can certainly ask him about the ramifications of going to an 8-lane. That'd be my suggestion for moving forward. And I think we also should find our next meeting time, because we've had trouble getting them to stick.
And to go a step further, because time is of the essence here, if there's no fixture count difference, if we look at the difference here and work in, what I'm hearing is that the smaller apron is acceptable, the 8.5 on one side, right? And we work that in, and we find out that the difference of that larger pool isn't going to be a massive fixture count change, then we would have some information to kind of go on to produce what Aviva was suggesting, is information to allow the cost estimator to give it to you as an alternate. Then you have the information to say, okay, well, here's the difference between the two, and then you can rule it out later. If the differences are significant and it bumps up the sizes of our spaces in our mechanical room, we'll just report that information back to you, because there does sort of have to be a kind of an upper limit here, I imagine, that you want to stay within to keep the project,
I would also suggest if we go to 8 lanes, that those 2 outdoor lanes that you add do not have to be 12.5 feet deep. Those could actually be significantly shorter. If you have a deep end that's already 6 feet or 6 lanes by 12.5 feet, those 2 new lanes that you add on could be significantly shorter for lap swimming, or for swimming lessons, or whatever you wanted to use them for. They do not have to be the same depth, which would definitely decrease the amount of volume that's going into the pool.
Good point, Clark.
Okay.
And if you look at pools like Dartmouth, now Dartmouth has an amazing, beautiful pool. I don't know if anyone's ever been there. I've spent significant time there. They have a 1 meter, they have a platform diving, and then they have part of their pool, the other side is actually all uniform depth on one side as soon as it comes up to level. So they have a diving well, but then the lanes where they would go right into swimming is just swimming lanes, and it's deep. It's probably like 6 feet, 6 or 7, maybe 8 feet, but it's the whole pool is that on one side.
If we were gonna talk about those being shorter, like 8 feet instead of 12, it sounded like you were saying, Cora.
Yes.
Would you want to then also talk about, we talked earlier in the meeting about if we needed all 6 lanes to be the full depth, And
Right.
part of the reason to not do that was additional complication of construction. But if we were going to do that anyway, would it want to be the first 4 lanes at diving depth and then the other 4 not?
I would do 6 lanes at diving depth because, as like Charles and I think Dory said, if you wanted to add another diving like 3 meter or 1 meter, then you would have that space to have 2 within 6 lanes because you'd have to separate them. But then you would have 2 additional lanes that you could go to 6 feet or go to 8 feet or whatever you needed it to be.
Would a different option to be a 6-lane pool, 7.5 feet, 1 well in the middle, shorter sides on the outside, put the diving board in the middle? That would be our most economical pool. Is that correct?
Yeah, probably.
Most
Right.
pools,
So-
if you look at like if you look at like Minnetonka, who has their diving board in the middle, their sides don't slope in. The sides just go straight down. They don't slope in.
But if we're saving water to save on fixtures, and it's considerable, I think it's worth looking at. If it just means moving the diving board to the middle, I know it's not as convenient, but we're talking substantial money, I think, here.
Kevin, is your hand up from before, or are you still hoping to get in on the chat?
That was from before, but I do have a question on that. If the diving board's in the middle, does that mess up with the starting blocks? Is that kind of why we wanted to be between 2 lanes?
No, so Kevin, you know how in our pool right now, the diving is in the middle and there's only 4 lanes. So if diving practice is going on after regular swim practice, they can still have swimmers come in and swim in the outside lanes. So most pools in a 6-lane pool put in between lanes 3 and 4, it puts it smack in the middle of the pool. If you put it between lanes 2 and 3, then diving only needs to use 3 lanes. You now still have 3 lanes that are not being accessed by divers at all, not going to be interrupted by divers at all. So that way you have half of the pool for diving and you have half of the pool still open for swimming.
Operationally, that seems kind of valuable and important, and aligns with your comments about, senior swim time and recreational use dovetailing here, because you have more potential to use the pool by more people.
Yeah, but the only time the diving board is going to be used is by the diving team during swim practice. We're not going to lose any more lanes by putting it in the middle than we do putting it between 1 and 2 or 2 and 3.
Well, I don't know. Our local pool, JFK, even during recreational community access, people are using the diving board while people are swimming laps.
Fine, but
it makes it so, Greg, what it does is it puts the diving well or the diving board closer to one side, which makes it easier to access in and out of, as opposed to having to use the end of the pool to get out of. So there's a ladder on the side, on each side in the deep end. So if you have it only 1 lane removed from the access on the side, that's why we're thinking we would like to move it, so that when you have swim practice, only one side's being used for diving and the other side of the pool would be used for swimming.
But don't you use more lanes that way instead of 2 lanes? If you had in the middle, you take the center lane line out, use the 2 for diving. You have 4 left. In your scenario, you take 2 lane lines out. Diving gets 1 side, practice gets the other 3. That seems less productive.
I mean, you could still use the outside lane for swimming, but if you're going to be using, like if you're at diving practice, they have the video recording on the side. So if you have people doing starts or anything like that on one whole side of the pool, then you're only going to be able to use 2 lanes for diving and for like swim team diving, because they're going to be obstructing the view of the camera.
Can we price out a 6-lane pool, 7.5-foot lanes with a decreased well, and then go to add-ons from there, so we know what we're talking about and we can a la carte it almost, instead of just kind of. Because I feel like what I'm describing is the $15 million pool. 6 lanes, smaller well, board in the middle, 7.5 lanes. I feel like I'm describing the $15 million. Is that probably close?
Yes, because that's very similar to what we've been looking at.
So that's what I'm saying. So if we a la carte it from there and say, all right, if we want to go 8 lanes, it's this much more. If we want to go a longer well.
The only thing I don't know about there is the smaller well. We've never made any decision about that, and I don't think our numbers have assumed that. So I think we've been, frankly, probably assuming a continuous, depth.
But that could potentially save us a lot of money based on gallons of water and then fixtures required to meet those gallons of water. Correct?
Right, it does cut down on the.
So it's worth looking at. I'd love to come under 15. We were at 10 originally, so just a thought.
Okay, so default, start there. Find out order of magnitude the impacts of the added width of each lane, the added width of across for the potential to add boards later, and the potential of what a wider pool would mean altogether going to the 8-lane pool. Great.
I think that makes perfect sense. And frankly, when we go back to the voters, we can say that these are the options that we as a committee explore.
Yeah, that's me.
And
So Dory, I have a
Dory,
question
how
for,
much? Yeah.
sorry,
ahead,
for the pool as it is right now, did you have it slanting in towards the middle? Because most pools we go to, the walls in the deep end go straight down. They do not slant in except from the shallow to the deep end.
yeah, no, we had not. I had assumed that it was a continuous depth across the.
Okay.
But we'll find out, what that impact is.
Okay.
Mike will be able to tell us whether these are how much more complicated and how much more expensive the difference is between those two things.
Okay.
Continuous depth.
So along those lines, in terms of regrouping and getting back into the swing of things with Mike Mancini, when would we like to regroup this committee? How much time do you think we need, Dory? At least a week and a half?
Yeah, a week and a half, ideally, just to get him. We really need to keep moving because we're developing the elevations. So anything that changes the overall that has impact on the elevations. It's a bit of a cost exercise, and we're still in SD, so we don't really want to say no until we have, I think, firm information to say no from or yes from. So we have to find out what Mike's availability is, but if we could regroup, a week and a half would be a little bit better for me, just because I'm going to be away for a little bit. But this could happen with you all without me, but Mike is away right now, so I know he's not going to be easy to get the answers out of right away.
Yeah, we have to wait for him to be back, next week. That's half a week already, and I feel like getting some of those discussion with him would be good to have some time for that.
Yeah.
So not next week, but sometime the week after.
Yeah, if we looked, I guess I'd say the 1st. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think what we can do is prepare written packages of the options as well, and what all the consequences of some of these are, so that we have essentially the narratives, while forming the 3-dimensional basis of option, the primary option. So perhaps if it's really clear on the first which options, if any, we're taking forward, then we have the material to go to the cost estimators, because we're trying to keep this all aligned in time with the high school project, so that the community can, review it, and we get the information out to the community. And the one thing I want to do is not go out to the community with a fuzzy message, because I think that would be really damaging to the vote process, because people will start, kind of looking for anything to critique once it becomes a real vote issue in people's minds. So we want to answer these questions, I think, and have a very clear narrative after the week of the 1st.
One other design update I can offer also, just so folks know, it's not encapsulated on the numbers Dory's showing you right now, because of shifts in the high school and the athletics and just sort of the form of it. I do think we can cut some space out of that athletics lobby. And I was doing a little bit of math on what I thought we could do there, Dory, while we were in this meeting. I'm guessing somewhere in the range of 300 square feet.
Yeah, that's helpful. Yeah. Okay.
So regrouping on August 1st, Tuesday, August 1st, it's starting at 7:30.
And just
Dory,
just
with
a reminder. I'm sorry.
With 2 weeks in between, is it possible to get some pre-reads out to the group so that we can come prepared?
We'll try. Yeah. I can't. I think we really do need Mike to offer us some different pool plans, with more detail of the actual swim basin area. So I'll see how quickly we can get those out of them. But yeah, we'll send things ahead so you have the information. I prefer generally, once we've got this much information out, that we kind of come in with people making a recommendation of some kind based on having pre-vetted it a little bit. So I agree, it'd be helpful.
Just a reminder on August 1st, that's National Night Out. So people may be here already for the other end of the day. I don't know if that changes things because we'll be trying to put together some kind of presentation or at least informational packet for that night.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about even 7:30. I guess if we go hour and 15, that's okay for me. But by then, I'm going to be out on the fields at that point anyway. So
it's going to be tight for Don too, because he does all the prep work.
I just wonder if it's possible to do it
another night, another day.
Well, I mean, early morning is okay. That's just usually DPW shows up and so. Right. But let's leave if that works for everybody.
Wednesdays, I mean, if is the second better?
I may be in worse shape Wednesday morning.
Right. Well, how about Monday? Nobody shows up Mondays at this hour.
Yeah, right. No, let's leave it. Yeah. Leave it as is.
Okay.
And it works for the committee.
Who is sending the correct Zoom invite out, just so we don't have people?
It will be me when I set up the Zoom. So you will, and I will make a point. When we were all Zoom all the time, I made a point of sending the updated, of resending the panelist invites, a few hours before the meeting. I haven't done that for a while. So I sent it the other day when I set up the Zoom. But again, I think rather than post that invite into a calendar invite, I don't understand. It's all magic that happens in Zoom as far as I know. You get the one that says East Long Meadow, you are a panelist at this meeting at this time. And that one should work. But I will make a point to resend them. Let's say if we're doing that Monday afternoon before I go. So there will be an email in your inbox with that panelist link. That's the one you should use.
Okay. I was just saying, if you set it up now, we can also just confirm that it shows up for everybody and be sure that we attach it to a calendar invite.
But you don't, calendar invitation would work, but you don't.
But if I can just back to the matter at hand, can the committee members make that date work?
I can make Tuesday the first work.
Okay.
If it's early in the morning again.
Yep, we're talking 7:30 again. Yep. Cora, Steve, Greg, Donna. Yep. Yes. Okay.
I'm on vacation, but I'll be up before everyone else.
Oh.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right.
It's a pool, and I need a pool. I don't care about winning a trophy in the parade. I just need a pool. That's all I care about.
Fair enough.
You guys are doing so well with the miserable pool you have. I'm amazed.
Right. I mean, people come from Long Meadow to swim on our team, and they don't want to leave. So that's saying something because they have a much nicer pool than we do.
It's the coaching, Dory. It's the coaching.
It's clearly the people. Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if people are leaving, that's fine. Can I just get the dimensions of what those stairs are? Because I just wanted to know what they are. I just don't know how wide and long they are. I was just like,
we have to confirm if this is actually what's needed at a pool, because that's
it is based on another pool.
It's based on another pool, but we just have to confirm the sort of numbers. But I do think I think it is currently 7-inch risers, and that's the part I have to check. Okay. It's currently about 13.5 feet wide for the stairs.
Okay. And 7.5, and then is it 4? I'm assuming like 4 steps.
It's more than that, because to get it's 6 risers at 7 inches right now. Because to get down to 3.5 feet,
Okay.
Not
and then so it's
extreme.
13.5 long, and then how much does it stick out from the edge of the pool?
So it sticks out from the edge of the pool 5.5 feet.
5.5. Okay.
right now. But I have to confirm some of those numbers
Okay.
with Mike.
No,
to make sure
13.5 is bigger than I thought it was going to be. So that's
to
I
make
think
sure they're
that's
what's needed.
I think that's like, that will be amazing for some lessons and for seniors getting into and out of the pool for other stuff. It's awesome.
Okay, great. Thank you. This gives us some time to work with Mike. And it's
Okay.
really helpful to hear your hopes and dreams.
All right. So with all that being said, we'll meet Tuesday, August 1st at 7:30 via Zoom. Don will send out the meeting invite the day before if he doesn't get too swamped with National Night Out. And is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Can I ask a
Yes,
quick
second.
question before we, sorry, can I just ask, this is Victoria, can I just ask a quick question before we adjourn? I'm sorry. So I know we have National Night coming up and the high school project plans to have a booth for the high school project. And I would assume we'd probably include some information on the pool at that booth. And it sounds like at our next meeting, we'll be making some decisions for the size of the pool, which will obviously impact the cost. But just in terms of preparing materials for National Night Out, is everyone comfortable with sharing with the community the pool at the size that we've been going with so far, which is, I think, would be the less expensive. I'm just thinking, obviously it's right around the same time things might flux a little bit, and I just want to make sure that the pool committee would be comfortable sharing information with the community at National Night Out.
I think if you do that, you then put the expectation that that's where it stays.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be really cautious. I'm always, at this point, if we have a range, that might be safer, especially given the flux we're in right now.
I think
So,
if you
I
say
think-
that we're hoping it to be there and these are the types of programs we're hoping to have at it, and if you give the basic shape, like we're going to have stairs and accessibility for people, I think that's going to be one of the most important things to get out to the community. Because when I was handing out little Swedish fish that had stickers on it saying, vote yes for the new pool, I went up to seniors and I went up to people with babies saying we need it for community-based, for swim lessons, and for community accessibility. So I think that's the biggest issue that people have with the pool right now is the high school uses it. That's how it's seen. It's seen as the high school uses it, and that it's not used by the community much, which is not totally true, but it's not visible that way yet.
I think another thing, we can ask Mike for one of their flyers that shows a bunch of different pools. I think better just to say a pool that's serving these needs than to be specific to the cost at this point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, that's great. That's good feedback. Thank you. And I would just say if anyone from the pool committee who's not on the school building committee wants to join us at our booth to answer any questions that might come up for pool, I'd say welcome to join us there.
Thank you. All right. Is there a second to, I think it was Charles, or I don't know who gave the motion, but to adjourn?
Second.
All right. All those who vote yes to adjourn, say aye.
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 All right. All right. And anyone
Great day, Rick.
opposing? Anyone abstaining? All right. Well, I will see you all later, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.